So till now we have got this very acceleration. So for any two frames of reference, if we have inertial frame of reference and a non-inertial frame of reference, so in that very case we will get the acceleration of a point particle in the frame of reference, inertial frame of reference, equal to be the acceleration, the actual acceleration which is caused onto the body inside that non-inertial frame of reference, plus times the acceleration with which the frame of reference itself is moving. Okay, so this gives the acceleration of that point particle. Now we have to consider, we have to calculate the force acted onto that very point particle. And to calculate the force, we know we have to apply the second law of motion. Second law of motion says that force is equal to mass into acceleration. Mass times acceleration gives the force. And consider the point particle P, it has got the mass m. Okay, so we have to multiply this very equation, say this is equation A, this very equation multiplying throughout it with m, multiplying equation A with m, that is the mass of the point particle throughout. Okay, so what will we get? We will get mass times A equal to mass times A prime, because mass does not change even if the particle is inside a frame of reference which is non-inertial, plus times mass times A naught. Good. So we will get mass times this, and mass times this from second law of motion. This is second law of motion. Okay, from that ma is the force. So we will get ma equal to, which implies ma will be equal to the force. This very force is onto this particle P with respect to the frame of reference S. Okay, force will be equal to this, equals m times A prime plus m times A naught. This gives the force acting on a particle which is studied under two frames of references, S prime and S, inertial and non-inertial. Okay, so if we need to apply this, what does this mean? This very thing, this is the force acting on the particle P in the frame of reference S prime. Okay, this is the force, this is the actual force which is acting on this particle P in the frame of reference, this S prime. Okay, so if we have to calculate, if we have to apply second law of motion on this very particle in the frame of reference S prime, for that what we will need to do, since this gives the force, but this is not all there it is, but there is an additional term. There is an additional term, this ma naught, and this is also the force. This is also the force, but this force is due to the accelerated frame of reference. Accelerated frame of reference. Frame of reference S prime. Because we know A naught is the acceleration of frame of reference S prime with respect to S. This is acceleration of this very frame with respect to this. So this gives to the origin, this gives the origin of another force inside this equation. So in order to apply, I will write it down here, in order to apply, if we like to apply second law of motion in an accelerated frame of reference, which is here S prime, this very frame of reference. If we want to apply second law over onto this, then what we will need to do, we have to add addition of an extra term, addition of extra term is needed, extra term is required. How that is, look, so we have got till now, we have got f is equal to m times a prime plus m times a naught. This is the frame of reference acceleration, and this is the acceleration observed in the frame of reference S prime. So we can write it down as, we want to apply a second law of motion onto this very thing. So that is the frame of reference S prime. F m times a prime will be equal to f minus times this thing. And this is the force which we need to add if we want to apply second law of motion over onto S prime. Okay, that is frame of reference S prime. So for that we have to apply, we need, that means we have to add an extra term, we have to add an extra term which is called as fictitious force, because this is also a mass times acceleration. This is also a force, but it is not force which is exerted by any external agency. It is the force which gets its origin from because of the acceleration of the frame of reference. Okay, because this frame of reference, this very thing S prime, is accelerated with respect to O prime, which is the acceleration here. So this very accelerated frame of reference, this very acceleration gives the origin to the extra force, which is here, this very force. And this very force is called as the fictitious force. Fictitious force. Or it is also called as the pseudo force. The pseudo force. This extra term we need to add, that is the minus times this very thing. Minus in this case because it is opposite to that of the acceleration felt inside O. Okay, because so for that very term to get second law applied onto this very frame of reference S prime, we need to add an extra term minus m times a naught. Okay, this very force is called as the pseudo force. For example, take the case